Today we got Jonathan Jacobs, co-founder and CEO of ETHOS Grooming Services for Men, and by far the best dressed guest that we've had in here to date. And that doesn't say much coming from me. We're Noti manager.
And I actually tried to dress down today. I didn't I
appreciate you coming down to our level. You look fresh though. You're looking good, my man.
That's the one thing you can always say is you've always been the best dressed guy I've ever known.
Oh man, I'll have to at some point. I'll have to tell you the story of when me and Ryan met first.
Yeah.
So
well, that's a good spot to start. Let's get right into it.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
So yeah, as you know, I've known Ryan for probably going on 10 years.
About a decade.
About a decade.
Crazy.
So the crazy thing was he was working at this company. I won't say any names, but he was working at this company, and it's one of these companies that send out these invitations to a lot of people, and they get them in and they sit them in a room and they pitch them on working for the company.
Yeah.
So the crazy thing is, I had already done this before, and it had been a couple years before, and I'm just sitting in the room and I'm looking around. I'm like, man, this is so familiar. I was just like, this, man. I said, is this the same company? I'm like, oh, here I am doing the thing. I said, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
It's the same company. So I got up, I started to walk out. Ryan Grice is walking in. And the crazy thing is that he was well dressed. He had a great suit on. I had a great suit on. He's like, hey, what's going on? He's like, man, already been here before. I'm good, man. It's like, oh man, just sit through the presentation. We'll talk afterwards. And by the way, I love your suit anyway. I just want to look at that for a little bit longer. So it was just this really great interaction, and I just felt that energy, and I was like, all right, I'll sit through the presentation. And by the way, he did give a great presentation because I ended up working with the company. So, that's our first interaction almost a decade ago. So.
Hey, when we did these career presentations, we were recruiting people for a sales role.
Yeah.
We got some sharp people,
looking
good like Jonathan, but more so some people that were not so sharp. So I was like,
this guy's looking. I gotta get this guy.
I'm like, hey man,
this might be my only good one in the room. You're not. Please don't leave, bro.
He did. I was definitely greasing the wheels a little bit, but he did. He was looking the part.
Yeah, well, that's
sure.
That's how we do it, man.
That's awesome.
So yeah, man.
But kind of going there, man. You ended up working for the company. Mm-hmm. We worked together for quite some time. And both kind of decided that we were kind of going separate paths away from the insurance industry, sales oriented, environment that we were in. Man, we were just talking ahead of time a little bit that. It's a tough world.
Oh yeah,
to get started on that insurance side. 100%
Absolutely.
commission, only grinding, cold calling, doing all sorts of stuff. We'll get into your business here in a little bit, but man, I'll take the challenges that I have today.
Oh, absolutely.
Over that average, and respect the people that do
absolutely.
it. I just
it's not me. Yeah. No, it's one of those things where I think, at my point in my career. So, my background's in architecture, that. I left architecture to pursue my entrepreneurial career. And so during the entrepreneurial transition, I decided, I need to get back to work. So I always wanted to be this guy that knew money and handled money and got involved in, all that stuff. And so that's how I ended up there. But within a year and a half, 2 years, I realized that I need to get back to my passion. So that's what that was about. But yeah, I respect anybody who does it because it's a lot of work. Yeah. I mean, it's, and even the stuff that I went through during my time, there was some highs and some lows. Mm-hmm. I remember one lady I just sold a beautiful policy to, and, everything was great. Got home for the day and I got a call. It's like, oh, you silver-tongued devil. And you I'm like, what? I just like, hey, let me come back out. It was probably out here somewhere. Yeah. And it was just like, are you kidding me? Like, and so and she hung up the phone, cancel the policy, And I'm like, wow, how did that happen? Yeah. And I remember I was at this low. And so, but yeah, there were some highs in there too. So it's just one of those businesses. I think you gotta have to accept the fact that it's gonna be this roller coaster ride. and hopefully you're doing like this and going up. But man, it's a crazy. So yeah.
But while we were working together, you always did have Ethos Grooming Service for Men working in the background in some capacity as that passion project. So, share with the good people a little bit about what it is, what you're doing, and how you're impacting the community in Philadelphia.
Absolutely. So, first of all, I just want to clarify, it's Ethos Grooming Station for Men.
Excuse me.
That's okay. But yeah, wow. Ethos Grooming Station for Men, it's a men's grooming company. It's designed to bring a distinguished grooming experience to the metropolitan gentleman. Our focus is really on making sure that guys' ethos speaks volumes before they even say a word. And it really speaks deeper to a lot of different things. I have a big vision that I put in front of the team all the time, and that is to inspire and empower people to become the best versions of themselves. And when you start to really break down what we essentially do, it's making people look good, look and feel their best, right? So when they get up, they can go out and conquer the world. Some of the things I started out and concepts that I was working with as I was building this business was some of the things like, hearing stories about Michael Jordan wearing a brand new pair of shoes every time he played, a game. And the concept was not anything special other than a brand new pair of shoes makes you feel like you're invincible. And so, you can imagine when you were 10 years old and your mom took you to buy a new pair of shoes, what did you first do? You put them on, you kind of did your jukes and you jumped because you felt a certain way. And so those concepts really kind of played into ethos organically by what we do. But then when you take it to a whole nother level, I'm like, well, why do we just stop there? Why don't we do and have events and do things that help guys really become the best version of themselves? And so, we started playing with that vision, and then I started, reading books. Earl Nightingale has a statement, how's it go? It says, when the man is all together, his world is all together too. So it's just a powerful statement that I started figuring out that I really wanted to do a little bit more than just make guys feel good about themselves for 2 days until their hair grows back out and they got to come back. Right. So that's what Ethos is really about. Yeah. I mean, we can go into the whole, how it all began. I mean,
well, that's what I was going to ask you, because that's not something that you see a lot out there, right? Especially you mentioned the metropolitan gentleman, right?
Yeah.
Out here, you don't see it too much, right? You see like your typical barbershop, right? But not some of the things that you're doing. Talk about that a little bit of how you're a notch, in my opinion, right?
Yeah.
Probably yours too, right? A notch above your run-of-the-mill barbershop and how you're really serving your clientele.
Yeah. So ultimately, we got to think about it like this. The barbershop in the barbershop's community is very simple, right? It's a service, it's a personal service that's provided in a community. That community comes to get the service, they leave. You can find that anywhere. You find that up here in Doylestown, you find that in Philadelphia on certain corners. But there is always this thought that there's a guy out there that doesn't have a experience that speaks well to him. And that guy generally is a guy who lives and or works in major metropolitan markets. Generally, those guys are somewhere between 25, 55. They're either graduating and getting out of college and they start their first law firm, or they're starting their residency, just getting out of medical school, or they're running their own business. They're a senior executive at a law firm or something like that. So we kind of share this gambit of people that come into our shop, and they are underserved because the barbershop in itself, in its organic, natural state, doesn't necessarily speak to that guy. They have to go and get the service, but they don't get the experience that matches what they're dealing with on the day-to-day basis. So it's a lifestyle thing. So the concept was, why should I have to drop off my lifestyle and what I choose to involve myself in, the nice car that I buy, the nice house that I own, the job that I chose, to go and get a haircut, and I got to wait 15 minutes because they took a client before 15 minutes before my appointment began, and, it's taking longer than so my day and my time is not valued. So that's what we do. We really try to value that guy's time. And because we do that, we've created something very special. I consider us the best barbershop in the city, and not because we are, in a sense, give the best haircut, but we do provide the best experience. And not because we're saying it, the customers are saying it. You know, we got 219 reviews on Google, all 5 stars. That, I mean, there's no other barbershop in the city that has that number of reviews, all being 5-star. They're 4.8, 4.9.
Yeah. And you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Philly Mag did an article about you sharing that sentiment as well.
Yeah. So Philly Mag a few years ago announced that we were the best in Philadelphia. So we got an award. We stick it on our. So yeah, it's really cool to be in this position where we actually are considered that. Now, when I interview barbers or cosmetologists that come in, they're like, "Yeah, I heard about you guys." And we're kind of a destination for them. They're working towards to get their skills up or to build their reputation or their professionalism so that they can work for us. And that's a great thing. And it's exciting to be on that level. But it's also that comes with some challenges because, we're also dealing with an industry that makes good money without this high-end experience. Yeah. Because it is a service. It is something that people need. So, we have our challenges, but man, it is exciting to be part of something that this city is embraced. We are actually building something on a luxury level that a lot of people don't believe Philly can handle. So some people say, if you were in New York, this thing would be blowing up. And for all intents and purposes, we agree. DC, this thing, this is the. But I think, the fact that we're challenging that status quo, if you will, for Philadelphia, that there are some people right here in this city that want great experiences and will pay the money for it. Yeah. And we've proven that. And
the one thing I would say is we've been down to visit your shop a couple of times, and one, your architecture background is very evident upon walking in. The place is stunning.
Yeah.
It's definitely
it's not a barbershop.
It's more than a barbershop.
It's really cool. It's like a luxury lounge hangout almost.
Yeah, absolutely.
So why don't you talk about that a little bit, about how you went about designing that? Because it is an experience. Like you guys, you got you have drinks in there. You got the iPads, like all this kind of stuff. It's not a traditional barber feel. It's truly like a luxury white glove service, fantastic.
Yeah, and I think that's the point of that. So, so when you walk in, and I'll just say this, a few of my clients have said this, but one in particular, Mr. Sawyer, he'll know who he is, but he told me one time, he's like, when I come into your shop, I'm transported. Like, he's a professional, he's an entrepreneur, he's helped law firms get their stuff off the ground. He's now like a head of diversity and inclusion for a law firm. And I respect him dearly. For him to say that, he gives me the full gambit. He tells me truly what's on his mind. That's exactly what we do at Ethos. So when people come in, they're greeted. We try to hit all the senses, right? And I say my architectural background, and you're right, but it's really my design background because I tried to solve some problems. But the fact is, we hit on all the senses, right? The first thing you do, you're gonna see everything. It's gonna be like, whoa. And most guys come in, I didn't expect this, right? The smells, right? The feel, because obviously, we kind of, we have an experience that involves steam treatments and aromatherapy and certain products and everything else. Taste, right? You said we liquor, we offer that. That's nice. Have 4 different versions. We try to do a smoky, a local brand, and a Japanese, which is very smooth. Wow, we do it all there. And what else? Touch, feel, sight, hearing, the music. Yeah. I mean, and a lot of guys, I've had guys get up out of the chairs like, what playlist are you playing, right? Because I feel so relaxed. And it's literally, we kind of build our own playlists and everything else. So we really try to make sure guys just really wind down, relax. It should be an opportunity for them to kind of decompress. And so that's what we try to create there without being too stuffy. So, obviously it's still a barbershop. There's conversations that go on. We talk about sports, we talk about the Phillies, we talk about James Bond movies and all that other stuff. But, ultimately the experience is that. And then we kind of have an upgraded experience. We got a, a wet bar there. So we can serve the drinks and everything else. We can, obviously ice and glasses and all that stuff. But we also have a bottle keep service there for certain members that they can pay a little extra and keep their own liquor in the shop. Very cool. So now when they come and they have their brothers in town for the weekend and they want to entertain their family, they have, kind of the means to rent the space, hang out, pull out their own bottle, and kind of show out a little bit. Yeah. So yeah, man, it's the library. We got a vinyl record collection. We can play records. We kind of do it all there. So yeah, it's a great experience for guys, and it's definitely different than the traditional barbershop.
Now, all this stuff is before you even get any services.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Right? So, this is just amazing.
Yeah.
From my experience being down there, it's just great before you even get anything done. So just keep on going down that road on how you're elevating that experience, that service for the gentleman you serve.
Yeah. I think that is the best part of it, because and just kind of taking it back a little bit. So my experience at one point in my architectural career, I'm young, I'm probably 23. I'm working at my first architectural firm. I'm making the most money I ever had. And, although I know how to cut hair, I can cut my own hair. Of course, I'm bald too, so that's easy. But, it's like, I'm going to go to the barbershop. I'm going to get my own, somebody else do this for me for once. So call the best barbershop in town, book my appointment. I go there and I show up about 10 minutes early and I wait for like an hour and a half. And the whole time I'm hearing, I always say this, Jay-Z in the background. And it's just obnoxiously loud. The conversations was nothing conducive to the kind of person I wanted to be or become. And I just realized, like, man, I've outgrown this. So I got up, I walked out. I haven't paid for a haircut since. All right, I'll get my guys in my shop to do it, and I'll temp them and everything else, but I haven't paid. So when we decided to design Ethos, it was more about that experience. So all the stuff we talked about, it was important, but the most important part is the experience, what they actually receive, right? Because even though we're not in the business of selling haircuts, we're in the business of selling the experience, the feeling, the prestige, you can go on and on, the wellness factors. The haircut is that commodity. They need to walk out of there feeling great and looking good. So what we have, and this is what we started out with, was basically a 60-minute service. We said, listen, if you're going to spend time with us, you're going to spend time with us. We're going to block out 60 minutes for you. And what we're going to do is we're going to give you a great haircut. We're going to take our time on that. We're going to listen to you. We're going to find out exactly what you need. But once we're done with the haircut, we're going to get into some wellness features. All right, we're going to give you a facial, and that facial will be a 4-part facial. It'll include a cleanser, a toner, a cleanser, a scrub, a toner, and a moisturizer. We find some great products. We found this great company from New Zealand called Triumph and Disaster. Perfect. I mean, they smell great. They do the job well and make people look great. But also during that process, we're going to use a steam treatment. So that steam treatment is really brilliant, because what it does is it kind of opens up the sinuses. You add a little eucalyptus and orange, and you get this great smell, hot towel on your face, and that steam opens up the pores, allows you to get, the face to get clean well, and it just refreshing. We've had guys fall asleep in the chair during this process. The facial massage involved in that. And yeah, it's magical when it's all said and done. And they get out of chairs and guys are stretching. They spend an hour. Now they're ready to go off and conquer the world. And that's the idea, right? You give them a great haircut, make them feel great, and they get out of the chair and they're like, let's go. So that's what we've created there. We still have that original kind of grooming experience. We've obviously added some other stuff to that, but ultimately that's what it is. And that's what won us the best of Philly. And that's why, people consider us the best in the city.
It's essentially a luxury men's spa day without feeling soft about going to a spa.
Exactly.
You still feel like a man being in a barbershop.
Absolutely. No, I get it all the time. It's like, man, I've even got guys, and we'll probably get into this one at one point, doing manicures and things. We probably won't get into pedicures. It's weird. But manicures, right? So some guys are like, damn, this is a great spot for me. I'd come here. Yeah. And instead of me having to go here and here, I'd come here to get that done. Because it's masculine. It feels like a place that I should be in. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really the important part too, is the masculinity of it. And so back to the design, right? And everything else.
Because you can go to like the salons that are out there and get some of the facials and steam treatments and all that stuff. But the environment is probably not, I shouldn't say probably not, it's definitely not what the majority of guys are looking for.
Absolutely. And that's what makes us special. That is literally, if you go on Google and do the Google reviews and read through them, the first or the one word that is most listed in all the reviews is atmosphere. And so when you can create an atmosphere that is masculine, that they feel comfortable getting or having another man touch their face, and, you know, because that some guys can be weirded out by that. But and we do have some ladies that, you know, they're very good at that. But, you know, that's something that you have to create the environment for that. And it has to be conducive to that. You know, guys just, okay, yeah, I get it. I accept this because you know, it's not overbearing. It doesn't feel feminine at all. And man, I just like this place. Yeah. So that's
some
what
strong hands. Get on that scalp, bro.
Yeah, man. Need that.
Dig in on that, right? Now, what you've created is something that's awesome.
Yeah.
From my experience, it's very impressive. How many iterations did it take? Because I knew about what you're doing conceptually, but to really dial this thing in and to find the products, to find the services, to find that balance of approach and service that people are going to want versus what you think that they're going to like and enjoy. Yeah. What were those iterations like for you from concept to delivery?
Wow. So just going back to that story, having the bad experience, it was probably a year or two later. I'm sitting in jury duty, and I just pick up a Men's Health magazine. I clearly remember it. And one of the articles in there was dealing with razor burn and razor bumps. A common, problem, especially for men of color, Italian men, very coarse and curly hair. And I was just reading, I was just like, man, this would be great to find a place that could actually teach me this without me having to order and have a subscription to Men's Health. And that's where the concept started. So I started writing down products and everything, researching, doing all this stuff, and Years go by. So, I moved to Philadelphia. I'm here, I'm in my career architecture, and I'm getting this bug that I really want to solve these problems. So what I decided to do was take this business plan and start to go and talk to barbers. So I had to go and talk to dozens of barbers about their challenges, what they would do, how they would handle this, what were their pain points, because I wanted this to be solid. I started to try to figure out how to, introduce my concept, which, by the way, was grand when I first got it, when I first pulled it out, because I'm an architect, right? I want to build something great, and I want everybody to come there and experience and everything else. So I had this massive plan, and I remember going and talking to people and, investors and all this other stuff, and like, yeah, where's it at? I'm like, doesn't exist yet. All right, well, until you have a place, then, we're not talking. So I had to start to take all this data and try to figure out how to scale it down. And so the interesting conversation came from Mr. Sawyer, the guy I just told you about. One day, at the time, he ran a men's haberdashery in the city. And he was like, I still call him the godfather of that whole movement. So this is late 2000s. And he had I was in there hanging out with him because he's a business owner. I'm feeding off of these people. And he says, when I hear your name, what I think about is something that you could put in my shop. That way I can take care of my clients. And when that happened, it just epiphany. So I started to think about that from a conceptual standpoint, like, how do I scale this down into a singularity, something that could be moved into a shop? So I called a buddy of mine that I worked with, Mr. Appio, and went to New Jersey, met up with him, had some beers, and I told him what the idea was. And so I told him what I was thinking, kind of a mobile grooming station. And he's like, okay, I was thinking about your idea. And so he pulls out Google and he's like, have you ever heard of a steamer trunk? And so he pulls up a steamer trunk and I'm like, oh, snap. And he's like, yeah, I was thinking maybe we just design this barbershop inside of a steamer trunk. That way you can pull it in, move it, we can use it. Everything you told me, we can do that. And so literally we sketched out our mobile grooming station right there on the table that night over a couple beers. And so what I did is I took that, went to the AutoCAD, designed it, then met a mutual friend who ran a woodworking shop and showed him what I was trying to do. And I said, can you help me build this? And he's like, well, I'm busy. He's like, but I can move the space around here and I can show you how to do it. That way you don't have to pay me. And so I literally started working on the mobile grooming station myself. So I built it, designed it, built it with his help. And so by 2012, this is before I met you, I had a fully functioning barbershop that had power, mirrors, running hot and cold water, the whole gambit that I could move inside of wherever I wanted to move it into and perform services. So that was November. I'm trying to think. So that spring 2013 is where I finally got a yes from Banana Republic at the Willow Grove Mall. They said, come in and let's do this. They wanted to provide a service. So that was my first opportunity to kind of spring Ethos Grooming Station for Men onto the masses. And so from there, it just grew because now I actually had a pilot, a point where people can come in and I can grab data, even more data from customers. What did you like about it? So I'm giving free services away. What did you like about it? What, why would this be important to you? What services would you be looking for? What's your experience with the barbershop? All these details now came from those experiences. And so even though I went back to work for a little bit with you, I decided to bring it back out in 2016. My wife said, you need to get you an advisory board. So I formed that. You were on it. And we started figuring out how we can get this back into the forefront and people and making sure that we get the final phase of this data that we needed to form the bigger entity. So that's what we did. In 2017, we had one big event inside, or a big event that lasted 3 days. We went from Guren Brothers on Guren Brothers on a Friday night. We did Toe Box Shoes on a Saturday, and we did Banana Republic in Center City on Sunday. And me and my wife literally moved this big steamer trunk across the city. Heavy, massive. It's got to be at least, I would say 500, but it may be more than that. But we moved it across the city by ourselves from one space to the other to capture as much data as we could. And from there, we literally had a mutual friend that I had met before. He came to visit one night, and he called me up a few days later. He's like, hey, man, that was pretty amazing. I got somebody you need to meet. So I met another gentleman who had an opportunity for a space. He's like, yeah, because the idea was that I put it in his space at first, but he's like, I can't do that. I've been in business here for 30 years. I got some clients and there's some loyalties that I have to my barber and everything else. He's like, but I've been approached by a big office building that has 185 square foot space that they wanted me to come in and set up shop. I'm going to tell them about you and let you have this opportunity. So that's what happened. We ended up opening up our first location in November of 2017 inside of an old mailroom in the Beneficial Bank building, which is now the WSFS building. And that's where we won Best of Philly. We moved that unit into that space and created this great experience, right? It was you were there.
I was there.
Yeah, you were there. And it was just a smaller version of where we're at now. And yeah, man, we had some really awesome people come through there, man. I mean, we had one guy, I'm not going to mention his name, but he's a patriarch to the city. I'll tell you some of his accolades. He knows the queen or knew the queen. He's runs his own ranch, provides the Wagyu and the Angus beef for what's the company called? The Bruno Brothers. Wow. He is that dude. And he would just come down, wouldn't get a haircut. Just come down and sit with us and drink some whiskey and talk. And I remember him saying this. He's like, listen, I've been around for a while. He's like, I've marched with King. He's like, I was a freedom rider. He said, this is excellence. He said, this is excellent. He said, don't change a thing. And mind you, he's 70s and, we're just sitting there just absorbing it all. So what we started to realize is that experience is there. There's guys out there that want that experience. And so from there, we opened up the bigger location where we're at now as a contingency plan to that. And that same guy came back and brought me a bottle of Magnus, Irish whiskey. Perfect. And I haven't seen him since. He's still around, but he just wanted to hand off and say, you guys are still doing your thing. So that's the story, man. It's pretty fantastic.
It's awesome. How big of an impact did those words have on you when you were in that spot? Because I don't recall exactly, but I know like things were going well, not perfect. And it was do you keep on rolling with this thing and can you do it? So like those words of encouragement that you got from that guy, how much did that mean to you at the time?
I don't think he knows how much that meant, But when you set out to do something, you have a vision, and that vision is being refined and molded, and it's shaping this beautiful object. And somebody like that recognizes it. That is heavy. And I mean, this is, and I say that because this guy is an attorney, and I'm telling you all his accolades, and just to come from him and say, I've been around a long time, and this is excellence. And the fact was, this older white gentleman, I just want to say this because this is very important. He said, it's not Black excellence, it's excellence. Because at the time there was a lot of terminology, and he kind of heard that. And I was just like, wow, like to hear that. And so what it does is it helps you to appreciate, number one, that I was doing something right, and I'm speaking to the right demographic. But number two, that when you have that kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Recognition. There's another word I'm looking for, but there's
pedigree.
Yeah. It's just, you just start to, it's humbling, but it also drives you. Like, I'm doing this. I'm doing it the right way. Like, I've done everything I'm supposed to do. This is great. So yeah, man, he was a big influence on me. I don't think he knows that, but he was big influence on keeping this thing moving and making the right decisions for the consumer, because they're the ones who pay our bills, and they're just as important as the service providers. So yeah, it's a big deal. Big deal.
Was there a point in time, like around then, after then, where you're like, maybe COVID, like, I'm not sure if this is going to make it, man?
Wow, man, COVID was the worst thing that could happen to a fledgling startup that had very unique and special aspirations like we did. Wasn't a barbershop, right? We've concluded that. So now what you're asking us to do, we just moved into this big space. That's the way we moved in there February of 2019. Shut down the other location, the original location. We were completely focused in on that. My main guy at the time had just transitioned, took the whole year of 2019 to transition out of his shop, his barber shop that he had in the Northeast, and move completely 100% into this new space. Most of his clients followed him. It was just, we did everything right. And so I remember that first month that he moved in, it was January of 2020. And I remember at the end of the month, we were like, we had just made the most money we'd ever seen in our life. And I'm like, hey man, what bill should we pay?
This is great.
This is
Things
great.
are rolling.
Yeah. February, are you kidding me? March 14th, I think it was, drop off. Yeah. The city told us we had to shut down. And it was just like, what the hell do we do now? Like, I was like, we're in the service business. How do we run a business and we've been told to shut down? So obviously that was a big problem. So we decided to pivot a little bit. We decided to start thinking about what our customers and our members were dealing with. And we started doing like semi-podcasts. We do these Zoom conferences with, doctors, psychologists, finance people. I was trying to get you on for one of those. I remember that. But just to kind of discuss what was going on, right? And what they were dealing with. And so, yeah, that was an extremely challenging part, of my career as an entrepreneur, not only to try to figure out how to solve the problem for the consumer, but also how to figure out how to solve the problem for the people that work for me. So now it's like, all right, how are we going to make our ends meet? So we had to ask everybody to take a 20% cut, just to make ends meet. We had to talk to our members, and some of our members like, hey, we understand if you don't want to continue paying your membership fees, but we really like it if you did.
Yeah.
So we got enough. The crazy thing is we got enough that said, hey, it didn't impact me. I'm working. Keep taking my money. And so now you got to figure out how to make sure that the value of what they've invested in us is given back somehow. So we have to keep track of every appointment, the money that they spent, so that we can give that services back to them. We opened up in June 2020, reopened, and immediately started trying to backlog all those services and getting people in. And so, yeah, man, it was a tumultuous time. I think what it did was it impacted the psyche of every one of my team members, because now we were just living this great life, right? We were having events, we were dressing up, we had guys coming to our shop for events, and all this great stuff happening, and it's all gone. So you're like, yeah, Ethos is great, but man, I really do miss my family. I had one girl who was moved up to Philadelphia just before COVID. She got a job with us in November of 2019. 4 months later, COVID hit, and she literally had no family here, couldn't hang out with anybody, right? And she couldn't even come to work. So it was, and she was young. It wasn't like she was, 30 and lived life. No, she was like 23. She was still young and wanted to do things and hang out and be social. Man, it had an impact on the psyche. And so when you start to put all those things in from a business perspective, how do you manage now that people side of things, but yet still stay profitable, engaged, and do all the things that's necessary to run a successful business? Man, that was tough. And looking back now, it literally, even though we got back open in June of 2020, man, the impact of that was years, even a year and a half, 2 years later. Period.
Especially because of what you said, right? Like, people kept on paying, but you weren't giving services, so you got to make up those services. So it kind of just kicked the can down the road a little bit financially. Oh yeah, we had to pay the piper at a certain point, and of course, the good news is, because we ran our business well, the government was able to kick in the PPP. We got 2 rounds of that. We got some SBA funding and everything else. So we were able to survive. But that doesn't necessarily solve the problem, right? Of people. And that was, and still is, one of our biggest issues, is just taking care of people. Because at this day and age, we're not talking about people just needing to get paid well. We're talking about they're dealing with some issues. And some of the things I read, and you probably read, is that nowadays, you can't just be an employer that, pays somebody well and thinks they're gonna stay. Now you gotta be empathetic. You gotta listen. Sometimes you gotta solve some problems for them. Sometimes you gotta teach them. Sometimes you gotta coach them. I've done all of that in the last 5 years, and COVID just kind of amplified it. So, man, it's COVID was a big deal too. Major.
Why don't you talk a little bit? I think one of the things you touched on is one of the things that we wanted to dive into is, talk a little bit about what you have going on here in November, and how, you're talking about the mental health side of it, and talk about some of the things you're doing with, your group and your community to help better basically people's lives on that side.
Yeah. So obviously, I think COVID led to this realization that there's some bigger things out there that need to be solved, and a good haircut and a great experience isn't enough. So, even immediately after we started beginning these conversations about working with psychologists to help deliver, how do I say this? Psychologists came to us and they said, hey, we want to essentially help us serve the community. And they said, they showed us reports about how the best place to help men, especially, underserved men, underserved communities, men of color, Black and brown, to get the mental help that they need, because the barbershop is a place that they trust and a place that they come to frequently. So we was entertaining all these conversations at that time. And so we just never really was able to execute on anything because of the landscape, right? The financial landscape that we were in. So finally, as we start to uncover and unlock a few things, our vision statement again is to inspire and empower people. I said this year, now this is crazy. Now it's 2023. We've been talking about this since 2020, late 2021. And here I am. I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to do something about this. I'm not going to allow myself to be, nothing wrong with this, but something happens to somebody in my family. And then I decide I said, no, I run a business. It's a business that serves the community. And I said, the best thing we could do is try to help men in my community, which is the people that we serve, to better understand and deal with some of the things that are challenging them. And that came conclusively to being a partner with Movember. So this November, we're going to be hosting a live event. We're inviting a couple of very productive and well-known top docs in the city. One is a clinical psychologist, Dr. Ray Van Key. The other is a medical oncologist, Dr. Rajan Singla. And they're going to come to Ethos, and we're going to spend an intimate night with them just talking about the challenges that come with, testicular cancer, colon cancer, mental health, and of course, suicide prevention, and get their point of view as the professionals, what we need to do as men, all that. And we're trying to raise $3,000. So there's something we're going to have there called a shave off. I'm growing out my stash, so I'm going to shave it off, and we're going to donate $50 for every person who decides to shave something off. And that'll give us an opportunity to give back to the community, give an opportunity for the community to gather and talk about something important, have some fun, and all that's built into the concept of the barbershop anyway. So yeah, that's what we're doing. That's awesome. We're excited about that.
Awesome, man. It's really fun for me to see like the vision that you had a decade ago.
Yeah.
Come to life and then evolve and kind of go down this whole road of really, making men feel their best.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Physically, emotionally, and really enhance what you got going on.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's the big vision for me. And as the CEO of the company, right, you gotta create that North Star for people, and not just for the people that work there, but also the people that come there. They gotta have some value. And so when you start to dive into these concepts, these conversations about mental health, physical health, I mean, you even think about the death of Chadwick Boseman, right in the middle of COVID. He's 43 years old, right? I mean, listen, I'm 47, and I'm like, wow, those things hit home. And so now you're really hitting on things that it's becoming pop culture, these conversations. So I'm just excited to be in a position to do that and to focus in on that for a little bit and get away from just, hey, come in and get a great haircut. No, let's come and chill out, have some whiskey. Yeah. And let's talk about some serious stuff, and then let's have some fun afterwards. Right. Yeah. So, yeah.
I think former athletes all know there's a common phrase called "look good, feel good, play good."
Yeah.
And everyone always wants to dress
Sanders,
nice,
baby.
Yeah. I think that's kind of how I summarize basically what you're trying to do is look good, feel good, live good.
Yeah.
And I just think that's a great philosophy to have to help people live, to be the best possible version of themselves.
Absolutely.
And I just think that's a great thing you're doing overall.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I'd be remiss. This is a show about money as well. So I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about, some things on the financial side.
Absolutely.
So as you look back here, what was the best money move when it comes to the business or just that you made personally?
It's crazy because I gave this a lot of thought, and I think my experience now with the ethos and myself, my journey as a person, I started giving this a lot of thought. So I'm gonna say it like this: I think the best money move I made was not to invest in anything but myself. Money is a concept, right? It's an idea. You know this. And when you start to think about money, money can move people. It can, excite people. It can crush people. It can, empower people. But if you're not in control of yourself, if you don't know who you are, if you haven't invested in yourself, then you're allowing that idea, that concept to move you to and fro. We've talked about this before in the past, this concept of money is, if you have the right mindset and mental fortitude, man, it doesn't matter if you lose your entire fortune overnight. You know what to do to get it back because you understand the idea, the concept. And so that is probably the biggest thing I've done. I mean, I remember even some time that me and you were talking, and you were helping me to appreciate a couple things. I remember you handed me this book. You said, this is what I'm doing, and we write these things down. And that was, even though I was doing it, that was something that helped me kind of categorize and do things on a consistent basis. And, even since then and before then, I've been doing a lot of research into me understanding who I am as a leader, me growing, having that growth mindset, and me emotionally what I need to do to take on these challenges that come with running a business. So that's been my best money move. And if you're talking about an actual physical money move, hey man, start a business. I think, I'm a firm believer in entrepreneurship. I think if you're really going to spend your time wisely or your money wisely, it's a business, because what you're doing is you're creating opportunities not only for the people that come work for you and everything, but you're creating opportunities for yourself. You're forcing yourself to grow. At a certain point, if you're going to really accomplish something, you're going to burn the boat and you're going to say, hey, I'm not going back. I've made my call. I'm going to make my decision. And the opportunity to build generational wealth from that, right? Because we didn't even get into, like I said, the commodity that we're dealing is haircuts, but what we're selling is so much more. And because you're serving the community, you get something back. And so our bigger game plan is so much bigger than just haircuts, right? It's so much bigger. And that's where the opportunity lies for the wealth, the generational wealth, and I'll say it like this, there's this story, and I'll say it real quickly, if you don't mind. I don't know how much time we got, but there is the story of the African farmer, right? African farmer, he has this farm, but he's hearing these grandiose stories of other African in the continent becoming rich because they're finding these diamond mines. He's like, man, I don't really want to do that. So what he decides to do, he decides to sell his farm and go out there in search of diamonds. Years go by, doesn't find one diamond. And, in a fit of despondency, he throws himself into the river and drowns himself. Meanwhile, back at the farm, the guy who bought it is in the creek, just doing a little work. And he looks down in the creek and he sees this shimmer of, bright red, green, yellows. Reaches down, picks up this rock. And he's like, wow, that's interesting. And so he takes it inside, puts it on the shelf. Well, a few weeks later, he has some people over, and somebody that he's hanging out with looks at the diamond, picks up the rock, and he damn near faints. And he turns it on. He's like, do you know what you have here? And he's like, oh, it's a rock. He's like, no, you found one of the largest diamonds ever on the continent of Africa. And in disbelief, he's like, are you kidding me? He's like, there's a bunch of them back there in the creek. The idea is that it had the original owner of the farm invested in himself, studied even diamonds, or in this case, we can call it money, studied what they look like in a rough state, how to discover them, where they might be and everything else. He would have figured out that he was actually on acres of diamonds, the largest diamond mine that ever been found. It was already there. So I say that when we start talking about that investment into a business, find out what it is that you're passionate about. Learn everything you can about that. And then go out there and find the diamond, right? Because that's what I think that when it comes to the barber industry, there's diamonds there. And a lot of professionals are literally just thinking it's the haircut. And it's not. It's not in the least bit. But there's diamonds there. So that's where I'm after, is the diamond. I've studied it. I've done my part. I've invested in myself. And so that's my biggest money move. It's a long play.
It is. And nothing, in my experience, nothing worthwhile usually comes easily.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? It comes through iteration, trial and error, again and again and again and again and again.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just a game of attrition.
Yeah.
Like if you can just hang around long enough, you'll figure it out. Do you have that time to get there? Yeah. Right. So let's jump on the other side. Mm-hmm. Worst money move. Maybe you go back and do something a little bit differently. Yeah. What would that thing be?
Well, I think ultimately, sometimes you don't want to move too fast, right? And sometimes I put money into the business before I had everything figured out. But I kind of gonna philosophically kind of look at it from the other side of the coin too, right? Is that if you're gonna invest in yourself, the one thing I would not do, and I've done this because I think we all have done it, is do things that don't help you, right? So, don't invest in things that are free, right? Social media, television, spend your money on things that's going to help you. Go buy a book, right? Read something, learn something. So even I can think about times when I wasn't doing well financially or whatever the case may be, and what I was doing, I was playing video games. You know, it's a poor choice, right? So if you're into all that stuff, you're never going to get anywhere. Investing in things is just going to help you. From an actual money investment, man, I would even say, you know, I think about those get rich quick schemes. I think we've all been approached by them. I've invested. Oh, you just put $300 here and you just tell other people and this, that, and the third. It's like, no, you just said it. Nothing worthwhile comes easy. It's going to be hard, right? Yeah. You're gonna have to make an investment. Sometimes it's an actual monetary, but sometimes it's just your time and energy and everything else. And so that's not to say that those things don't work, because they do.
Sure.
But you're going to make that investment. You're going to have to put the wood into the stove in order to get the heat back. So you're going to be spending a lot of time. I invested $300. Be prepared to spend, you know, your time on really making it work. And I think those are the things that people don't tell you about, is that, I just said it, you know, you can't expect heat from a stove if you're not putting in the wood. You got to go out there and chop the wood. Sometimes you got to go out there and, you know, bring it in and put it in the stove to get the heat back. So it takes all that work just to get the heat. And so I think that's the one thing I would say, you know, stay away from those things. If you find something that you love and you're passionate about, learn everything you can about it, make the investment in that, make the investment in yourself, and just take the time to allow it to flourish, to bloom. Does that make sense?
So if you had to go back and tell your younger self, you know, one thing, words of advice to younger Jonathan, what would those words be?
I would say, man, that's a good one. I thought I had the answer, but maybe I don't. When I look back at who I am now, I think that what it's about, if I'd have learned to, how am I saying this? Because there's something I'm looking for. There's something I learned very evidently. It was while I was doing insurance sales with the company that we were working with. And there's something about the law of attraction.
Yeah.
That law of attraction is you get what you put out. And once you understand that concept, man, things change. Once I understood that concept, things changed for me. Now at that time, I was in my mid to late 30s. Had I known that when I was in my 20s, oh my God. You just really don't understand life at that time. But if somebody would have took me aside and said, hey, trust me, you get what you put out, right? What you think about is what you're going to get. You know, that's how it works. So that's what I would tell myself now, a younger version of me with what I know now. Oh my goodness, if I'd have learned that, game over. Game over. Yeah. But it's a journey, right?
Yeah.
Had I not, you know, I thought architecture was it, because most of us think going to work for somebody else is it. And for some people it could be, and it's not a bad thing, but I thought it was it. Then I realized, no, I'm an entrepreneur. I got to go after this and I got to do this. Then I realized, oh, that's a lot of work. I got to go back to work. But it was that journey and that process that led me to that conclusion and led that to me. And I think it was on the very same day, I'm 100% honest, that's what it was, the very same day that those ups and downs we were talking about earlier. And I got that call from the lady who said, hey, you tricked me and everything else. That very same day, I turned on Netflix and watched this little, I think it's called The Secret. And I watched that and I immediately got it. And then I started feeding myself with all that information, and it changed my life. So yeah, that's what I tell myself.
Awesome, man. Well, it's been fun, man. I'm proud to see all that you've accomplished so
Thank
far.
You, Thank you.
And also excited to see what's ahead for you and the awesome things that you have brewing. So
absolutely.
If anyone wants to come check you out online, book a service, see what you got going on, what's the best way for them to find you?
So the best way to find us, you can Google us, Ethos Grooming Station for Men or Ethos GSFM. You can find us. You know, we're going to come right up. Even the Ethos, believe it or not, it should pull us up, Ethos Barbershop. We're located at 339 North Broad Street, Suite D, just at Broad and Callow Hill. You can check us out on Instagram, Twitter or X now, Facebook, at Ethos GSFM. Yeah, I think that's how you find us. They don't have phone books anymore, so yeah. But yeah, you can find us all the normal channels, and come check us out. We'd love to see you. We'd love to help you out on your journey. Love to hear about that journey and meet new people. So yeah, come see us.
Yeah, especially for the November event if you're interested in raising some money for a great cause. Make sure you do that.
And that is going down on November 9th, a Thursday, November 9th from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m.
Awesome.
Yeah. If you're going to be shaving your mustache. Anyway, might as well come down and make it for a good cause.
Yeah, and I've already put out that I'm going to be donating $50 for every guy who does shave something off. So you may as well come by and help a good cause and, bring some awareness to something very important to us. So,
awesome, man. Well, John, thanks for stopping by, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you, guys. Continued success.